called Fanboys. It was about a guy who's got cancer or something. He's getting ready to pass, and they petitioned Lucas to go see the prequels before he goes, something like that. A movie like that wouldn't even make sense anymore because that was based off of the 77 to 83 Star Wars vibe, and like if there's no, I don't think there's anything around nowadays where people would be like, yeah, it's my dying wish to go watch some show, to be a part of something. That just doesn't make sense anymore to really anything, and especially not Star Wars after what they've done to it. And the image, if you're not looking at the screen, is Kathleen Kennedy, and there's looks like what a bloody horizontal mark on the wall. It looks like the last soul left in Star Wars dragged across the wall. So Kathleen Kennedy possibly leaving, probably leaving. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. There are dozens of YouTube channels that for the past 10 years have made a decent living, basically lying about Disney and Star Wars, where they might take a grain of truth or a rumor, and then I envision them doing a line, having a drink, and sitting down in front of the computer to just come up with just start writing fiction to sell to the YouTube is infotainment, and once you know that, you don't get mad at people. Like they're providing entertainment. It's okay if some of the channels are just kind of making stuff up out of whole cloth. It's like it's do you really expect them to tell the truth? I mean, when people keep coming up with these rumors, and you ever like write them down and notice that, oh, none of them ever come true. Because in 2015, Disney came out with their version of Star Wars, their $4 billion universe, and they very clearly showed that woke Star Wars was going to be the future, which might be the end of Disney. And this is probably one of the best examples. The Acolyte, why it's the most controversial Star Wars project. Well, space interracial space lesbians use the Force to make a scissor baby. So these channels finally had new Star Wars to talk about in 2015, and even if the movies did suck, there was an expectation that eventually, after the bomb of Solo and the streaming shows, well, they'd start to turn it around. And no part of me thinks that Disney is going to turn Star Wars or anything else. Kathleen Kennedy is not going to matter. For the next phase of Star Wars, kids, it doesn't matter who they replace her with. Even there's just too many Leslie Headlands and types at Disney. Even if Disney had somebody who they think, we're going to get somebody who's a little bit farther to the right to try to bring balance to the Force. Right wing to them it doesn't mean the same thing it means to us. Anyway, what kept the YouTube side of Star Wars going was the horrible streaming shows, which, to be fair, the first one out of the 8 they did was the Mando with the Baby Yoda, and that was a pretty decent sized hit. All they have to do is keep going in the direction and start turning Disney around after the 3 big screen abomination, or 4 because of Solo, I guess. Well, 5, Rogue One, I think did pretty well. I saw that. I was in the theaters. That was pretty decent. So of course they don't. Instead, they choose to get in online Twitter fights about virtue signaling over things that nobody cares about, and then they fire Gina Carano because she didn't want to use pronouns and she wasn't getting with the message. And they make like 8 other Star Wars streaming shows, Obi-Wan and Andor and Acolyte, and a half a dozen more. And they mostly focused on black lesbian space witches, lots of muff diving and blonde man bad themes. The Mando was the only one that probably made money, and I think it was one of the few that got a second season. Then they had one with some diversity kids, and I think that was on for like 1 season, and feminist themes. Well, feminism is in all of new Star Wars. I have to admit they all just sort of blend together in my memory. There was some autistic bleeding pussy whining on Twitter because the Obi-Wan show, who's that guy, Ewan McGregor or something, had a black chick that was put in there for obviously diversity points. So this douche canoe makes videos from his Tesla about how the audiences are all Nazis if they don't accept getting the Rose Tico treatment, and they're Nazis for not liking Rose Tico, the original Rose Tico. That was all at these. That was at this gay and retarded time on social media where you had BLM, and that was kind of the background setting. And then you had Rings of Black Power Afro Hobbit edition came out, and Amazon paid the actors from the original to wear T-shirts with different colored elf ears and suck dick on camera. Well, I mean, that was how gay it was. It felt like there was either a briefcase full of money in it for him, or somebody was holding a gun off stage because it looked like a hostage video. Gosh, more Hollywood echo chamber twat waffles in their mansions, in gated communities, lecturing us about diversity. Yeah, we've seen diversity, and let me be clear, we reject it. It's stupid. Oh, so you're saying that you're a Nazi? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's a totally fair and accurate conclusion. That if you want the story to look like the original story and not some Larry Fink globalist propaganda, heaven forbid they just make some new Star Wars or Lord of the Rings types of universe, a fresh intellectual property that they can own the rights to, and they can make it as black, gay, and feminist as they want. They can call it space, sodomy, and diversity aids. Anyway, the point being that Disney was making a lot of both Marvel and Star Wars. You look at the IPs that Disney owns, and from Indiana Jones to Star Wars to Marvel to God, I don't even remember all of them. That's how forgettable they are. You think, oh, you guys should just be printing money, right? Just give the audience what they want. There's millennials and Gen X, and then there's their kids and grandkids, and they look at you like you're crazy. Like, no, we're just going to make propaganda that doesn't sell. Anyway, so they were making a bunch of these shows that nobody's watching, stuff which is bombing left and right, to the point where people who used to be on board these fun sorts of silly movies just started forgetting to watch, which is going to be interesting because the shows are part of the streaming shows are part of the setups for the big screen movies, which hopefully should be making hundreds of millions of dollars in net profit. And for Marvel, you saw how well the last movie did. That was the Captain Diversity hire, the Captain America with, I don't even remember the guy's name. That's how forgettable he is, son of a bitch. He was the Falcon, so he's got wings, and then he took over, he kicked out Chris Evans, Anthony Mackie, kicked out Chris Evans, and he got the shield, and now he's like two characters in one, this child's chimera of just adding powers onto a character, and that movie is not doing well. It's at like $300 million now, $293 million total in its second weekend has collapsed, so it does not look like it's going to cross over into profitability. The Disney Plus shows were supposed to whet your appetite, not satiate you for the main course, but people didn't really care about a new race-swapped character. People are getting really tired of diversity. Faster than Hollywood is becoming aware of it, though the long line of underperforming movies should have been an indicator. How much money can Disney keep losing? Well, you're going to find out. And Daisy Ridley has another Star Wars girl power movie. And oh, what's this? My Star Wars insider, who's a masseuse at the Alan Dershowitz Epstein underage massage parlor for Disney employees, just talked to me, and she leaked the plot. It's going to be about Daisy Ridley has to battle this new threat in the galaxy. No, it's not the rise of the Hutts as they try to take over Arrakis, the spice planet that the Space Federation sent Spock to with their Genesis plan. It's going to be an evil, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Sith who has a phallic-shaped spaceship, the SS Patriarchy, and his new empire is gonna go on planet to planet to put worms in brains and women in burqas, and they'll have flags that are black symbols on a white circle background with a red flag, and there'll be two curled space snakes for the Slither Praetorian Guard. I mean, it's like that's how on the nose they were with the what was it? The New Order, the New World Order, but it's the right wing and not globalist communists. So Daisy Ridley has to go around the galaxy training little kids to fight this new threat, and oddly enough, the kids with the best capabilities are all actually sub-Saharans, Chinese, Indians, and Mexicans, because Star Wars looks just like L.A. So that'll be Kathleen Kennedy's last movie. Anyway, it doesn't matter what happens after her. The Star Wars branch of Disney is dead forever. It's going to be in the dustbin of history. Disney had a chance in 2015 to bring a new young audience on board, the kids and grandkids of Generation X, and then, a lot of millennials in Generation X who just wanted to see what Star Wars had to offer. Nothing, as it turns out. But you got to bring in kids to get the next generation, to make multi-generational fans with the main characters of, Finn, Poe, and I forget Daisy Ridley's character, Ray or something. And that was, it was a cast who were the wrong people for the roles. A young woman is not going to be a leading character who does the fighting because that's what men are for. She's supposed to be there to be a sex object that men will risk protecting. She doesn't need no man, then what are her two sidekicks, her two penis haver token affirmative action hires? Why are they in the movie at all? Because you didn't want to just make chicks as the main. That was even worse than probably not having them. They had a woman in the man's role in several parts of the movie. Admiral Holdo, the purple-haired lady who went and fought the dinosaurs in that 90s flick. Now she's fighting the patriarchy. Then they forced in race mixing everywhere, which is another thing that people are absolutely turned off by, which is admittedly not politically correct, but political correctness is what got us here. The leading male and female are mixed. Yes, Disney, we get it. You're filthy globalist parasites. That's pretty clear. The thing is, I can't even say, you got the originals that you can go back and watch every 5 years if you needed a little nostalgia boost. The problem is the Disney stuff was so stupid that it ruined it. Then you see Mark Hamill's insane Trump derangement syndrome, and you're just done with Disney. And that's the future of Disney and Hollywood in general. It's mixed race, space, lesbian, communism. It doesn't matter if Kathleen Kennedy is there or not, or even if after her they tried to turn it around. I don't think they could. The audience doesn't care anymore. So they'd have to get new kids on board, and essentially you'd have to have new kids on board with the energy of the original Star Wars or Harry Potter. And it's pretty rare that people come up with movies like that, like a Star Wars. Its ability to connect to children and sell toys in the 70s and 80s was unparalleled. Harry Potter was probably the closest thing, 30 years later, or more than 30 years later. But you just don't come up with those movies that often. If they could, they would. They just don't do it. That kind of shit. And the thing is, even Harry Potter couldn't be made today. It was woke for the time. When did that come out? Like 2000 to 2005, somewhere around there. If they made it today, it would be even more diversity and more probably trans and gay and all this kind of stuff. I know J.K. Rowling's just not too on board the trans stuff, but it wouldn't sell the same way. It wouldn't connect to the same way. That was probably the last big movie that connected to kids. Anyway, whatever crowd would have been on board with the restart of 2015 Star Wars has already aged out of it. The streaming shows ran full speed away from the straight male audience and sort of went to the female audience, but it was still based on fantasy, sci-fi, action, but with diversity and girl power, feminism, single, flat-chested moms. So they had a problem because the female woke crowd from, say, their teens to 30, they say they love this stuff, but they're lying. It's called virtue signaling. Welcome to Twitter. They do that shit all the time. They might love Baby Yoda keychains and plushie dolls and coffee mugs or a t-shirt with Carrie Fisher on it from 1977's A New Hope, where she's got a blaster and Luke is hanging on to the wire to swing across the chasm. But they don't actually want to watch flat-chested black space lesbians or She-Hulk, where they had an animated dancing scene. They just say they do on Twitter, and then they go back to watching old Ally McBeal episodes that they had their boyfriends pirate for them. Because the Force isn't female. They might be able to sell t-shirts that says the Force is female, but that's as far as it goes. The Mary Sue crowd watches Star Wars. They're the girls who are paid to be woke, or at least pretend to be woke, to talk about it. It strikes me as absolutely bizarre when anyone over teenage years gives a shit about globalist soy slop TV and anything in the mainstream media. You should be watching me live on Odyssey think up creative new racial slurs, or we study different ethnicities so we can insult them properly. Mainstream anything is for midwits, which is great because the more they chase people away, the better. Mainstream media is kind of slowly going the way of horses as transportation. It's always going to be around. It's just, things come and go, like stage plays and musicals and what do you call it? What do the Germans, the Italians do? That's singing, but opera. It's like, yeah, this stuff is around. Stage live performances are around, but obviously it's not what it used to be. It's like, mainstream big screen theaters are probably going to convert over to something else as people decide, you got a big TV at home, you got a sound system. There's just, it takes away a lot of the need to go to a theater for stuff. And YouTube looks like it's probably going to join them. Anyway, Star Wars was fun while it lasted, but it ended when Disney bought it. It didn't have to end, but Moloch requires many different types of sacrifices, including stuff like this, not because they're sacrificing intellectual property, but because they're destroying a piece of history that's people of a certain age, I don't know, from 40 to 60 are probably connected with. It's that destruction of those kind of heroes. Where the original Star Wars, 77 to 83-ish, and those heroes, the blonde-haired kid goes on the hero's journey with a cast that looked like they belonged together. It, might have had some woke elements for the 80s, but that was an entirely different time. So Disney had to destroy that. They don't want people going back and looking at a simple, coherent story for kids that also adults could watch. It all held together. It made sense. It had great special effects for the time, but it was sending the wrong. It wasn't a globalist message. It was more of a nationalist message. Even though they try to look back on it now and go, oh, well, they're fighting the space fascists. The thing is, at the time when we were watching it, we just didn't think that. We didn't. It was just a movie. We weren't thinking that there were communists or fascists or anything like that. Because at the time, the communists would have been the bad guys. Like nobody was worrying about. Like there's this whole kind of I don't know, people trying to re-examine history, and for most of America, it was always the evils of communism. And then the Cold War ended, and then communism kind of came back, and because people started to age out of trying to warn people against it. And now you have, the full-on kids on social media who are trying to tell, people in their 60s about, no, you didn't actually experience real communism. It's like, oh, really? Because my uncle was in the gulags in Russia. He was actually kidnapped for 5 years. Oh, well, he was probably a wrong thinker. Nope, just kind of kidnapped randomly to go be a slave for. Oh, that wasn't real slavery. It doesn't count. Yeah, I think it does. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode.